You've been working for years. You're doing everything right, and somehow it's still not enough. Nobody prepared you for this, and nobody prepared them either. That feeling isn't new. Men have felt it for centuries, but nowhere was it more brutal than here. You are 19 years old. You own nothing, no land, no title, no name that anyone important remembers. And the woman you want is already being negotiated like a trade deal. Not by you, by two men in a room you were never invited into. This wasn't a nightmare. This was Tuesday in medieval Europe. Now, medieval Europe was not one place. It was hundreds of different cultures, different rules, different systems. But across almost all of them, one thing remained constant. Men had to earn their place, and the cost was brutal. There was something called courtly love. Sounds romantic. It really wasn't. The rules said you could admire her, you could write poems for her, you could dedicate your fights to her name, but you could never say what you actually felt, because desire was considered weakness. You had to want her completely while performing like you felt nothing. Perform strength on the outside, break slowly on the inside, and call it honor. Men were trained to suppress the very thing that made them human. They buried their feelings so deep they forgot they had them, and they wondered why nobody talked about their feelings. Tournaments weren't entertainment, they were job interviews, except the interview could kill you. Now imagine this. You have trained for months. You haven't eaten properly in days. Your armor is borrowed. Your horse is not yours. You ride out in front of everyone. The crowd is watching. She is watching. You fall. Your rival wins. She places her ribbon on his lance. The crowd moves on. Nobody checks if you're okay. Nobody ever did. And if you refused to enter the tournament at all, you weren't seen as wise. You weren't seen as careful. You were seen as nothing. Cowardice had no sympathy in that world. You either bled for your worth or you had none. Your entire value as a man was measured in wounds, and if you didn't have enough of them, you weren't worth much. Everything we just described, that was for knights, men who at least had some status, some armor, some chance. Most men were peasants. They woke up before the sun, worked land they would never own, for lords they were afraid of. They didn't choose who they loved. They married whoever was left in the village. Sometimes most peasant men met their wives days before the wedding, sometimes hours. You didn't marry someone you loved. You married someone you hoped you could learn to tolerate. And if a lord wanted your wife, there was nothing you could do. Nothing. Not because men were weak, but because the system made sure they had no power to begin with. Some men lived entire lives without ever being chosen, without ever choosing. Here is what nobody tells you. To marry well, you needed wealth. To build wealth, you needed to marry well. Great system, really well thought out. It was a circle with no entrance, and the only way to break it? Violence. Reputation built on blood. There was a man named William Marshall, born with nothing, no land, no inheritance, no future on paper. His only skill was fighting. That was it. No backup plan, no family money waiting somewhere, just a sword and the quiet hope that someone important was watching. He bled through tournament after tournament, year after year, wound after wound. If you were born with nothing, your only way up was violence and reputation. He fought long enough and impressed the right people until the king himself decided he had earned a reward. That reward was a woman, handed to him like property, by someone more powerful than both of them. That was considered a success story. Let that sit with you for a moment. And it wasn't just young men who suffered. Fathers carried it too. In some parts of medieval Europe, if you had a daughter, her future depended entirely on what you could offer. That offering had a price tag. It was called a dowry. Land, money, livestock, whatever you built over a lifetime, handed over so your daughter could have a chance. If you couldn't afford it, she married poorly, and that failure was yours to carry. Some fathers had 3 daughters and spent everything they owned making sure they didn't die alone, then died with nothing themselves. Nobody wrote about those men. Nobody remembered them. They just disappeared quietly into history. And if the system outside wasn't enough, there was the system inside, your own head. The church watched everything. To feel attraction was dangerous. To act on it was sin. To even think about it too long was corruption of the soul. So men were told their natural feelings made them weak, sinful, less than. Because apparently being human was the problem. So they buried it, pressed it down, and called it discipline. Most men in medieval Europe died quietly, not in battle, not in tournaments, quietly, having never been chosen, having never been seen, having spent their entire lives working inside a system that was never designed for them to win. And the worst part, they didn't even have the language to explain what they felt, because vulnerability had no place in that world. There was no room for it, so they stayed silent and called it strength. Today, rejection stings. It hurts your ego, maybe your confidence for a few days. In medieval times, rejection could mean staying poor forever. It could mean dying alone with nothing, with no one. The battlefield changed. The pressure on men never did. It just got quieter. History doesn't forget men like this, and neither do we. If you want to know what else they never taught you, the subscribe button is right there. We are just getting started.